Hello, I'm Linda Scott, the President of Local Government New South Wales and of the Australian Local Government Association. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today. I'd like to begin by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land that you're all meeting on today, the Wonnarua people, the Awabakwa people, and of course the Darkinjung people. I'd also like to pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, whose land I'm speaking with you from today. I'm so sorry I can't be there in person, but I know you'll all have a wonderful time in the beautiful Hunter Valley at this very important conference. I'd also like to welcome the Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia officials and members, as well as, of course, the elected members and distinguished guests to today's important conference. The last 3 years have tested us all like no other time we've witnessed in recent memory. The extended and severe drought has placed, of course, enormous pressure on our local water utilities and our communities, followed quickly by the devastating Black Summer bushfires, which tragically saw not only loss of life, but millions of dollars of property and, of course, also our local government infrastructure. Then we were all hit by the COVID pandemic with enormous implications for our councils and our local government staff. Our ability to support our communities and manage and maintain our infrastructure in the face of this unprecedented crisis has resulted in massive hits to our revenue and, in some cases, significant local government losses. Councils, of course, though, have been at the forefront of a locally led recovery, and we've all done so much heavy lifting, in particular those of you in the engineering and professional fields. So I really do want to take this opportunity to thank you for that enormous and important work and commend you for the extraordinary results that you've seen. Local Government New South Wales has been working hard for you, and we've worked very hard, in particular, in response to these challenges, to empower councils and their communities to lead Australia's locally led recovery. We've, of course, focused our advocacy efforts on securing economic support for councils from both the New South Wales and Australian governments, so that funding reaches all of you at the grassroots level as quickly as possible to ensure that we can support your efforts on projects that are ready to go. We have been quite successful actually on your behalf, and we have secured unprecedented levels of funding directed at local governments. For example, we've been able to welcome the Australian Government's Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program from May 2020. Paid directly to local governments using the Roads to Recovery funding, councils received $500 million in funding that hit your accounts on July 2020. This has been further supplemented by $1 billion in Phase 2. The Australian Government's Shovel Ready program was announced in October last year. Again, $1 billion invested in ready-to-go projects across Australia. The Australian Government delivered $191 million of supplementary funding, and the New South Wales Government's Fixing Local Roads program matching its own funding of a further $191 million. And that's been rolled out to local governments as well. We welcome the Australian Government's announcement of $500 million for targeted road safety works in October that injected a further $140 million into roadworks targeting regional roads for improved safety treatments, directly saving lives on our local roads. And this was matched by the previously announced and accelerated funding from the New South Wales Government of $258 million. On the local water utilities front, we know how important our advocacy is to securing you all enough support to keep people drinking and alive across Australia. We've advocated to the Commonwealth and the state governments to bolster water security for our regional and remote communities to ensure you're all more resilient in the face of a changing climate that scientists forecast will lead to more frequent and prolonged periods of drought into the future. We've seen both the Australian and state governments addressing the comparative lack of investment in water security, injecting much needed funding into dams and raising dam walls, and we welcome the $500 million investment in the Wyangala and Dungowan dam projects from the Australian Government, matched by an initial investment of $245 million. In total now, the New South Wales Government has committed $1.5 billion to 21 water security projects across the state, including pipelines, bores, and a range of other measures designed to improve infrastructure and community resilience to manage the droughts. We're working closely with the New South Wales Government on its newly announced Town Water Risk Reduction Program to help find better ways that we can all together work collaboratively to address areas the drought highlighted need to be made more resilient and urgently. We're also very aware of the future challenges we're all facing, such as addressing the serious skill shortages of public works engineers in New South Wales. We're working hard on initiatives to attract and retain a skilled workforce, particularly in rural and regional New South Wales. We continue to advocate to the New South Wales Government for rating reform to ensure that councils are financially sustainable into the future, not only for project funding, but also for that very important ongoing funding provided by federal assistance grants. Early economic data suggests that many of the initiatives that we have successfully advocated for are helping to drive a better than expected economic recovery from the devastating effects of droughts, floods, fires and COVIDs. We need councils to be talking about the work they're doing to create jobs, because that's the message the Commonwealth and state governments hear most loudly, and that's what enables us to allow you to lead that economic recovery. One of the factors that makes us so successful in our advocacy is our partnerships. Our long-standing partnership with IPWEA, which of course supports local government engineers in their critical role of delivering, maintaining and operating our local infrastructure, is one of our most important partnerships. We value the incredibly good quality and expert advice that IPWEA provides to support advocacy for all of you and for all local governments. We're so proud to continue to partner with IPWEA, particularly in the Water Directorate and Roads Directorate. This active working relationship that dates back to 2004 has successfully delivered knowledge, technical resources and advocacy to support councils to optimise road and transport outcomes. Thank you for that ongoing commitment. We look forward to continuing this fruitful collaboration with all of you through initiatives like the highly effective Roads Directorate to help deliver more livable cities and communities that the people of New South Wales deserve. Thank you so much. All the best for a wonderful conference, and I hope to be able to catch up with many of you in person soon.